Good morning. Can people hear me okay? I have a very soft voice. Thank you, Eugene Sensei, for that very beautiful and inspiring presentation. Thank you, Richard. My name is Antonio de Castro. I'm the project director of the Shumei Natural Agriculture Farm in the Philippines, and we were asked to just report on our activities in the Philippines and how we're sharing with the community there, especially the indigenous communities. Just a bit about my background. Before I became a natural agriculture farmer, I was an organic farmer in the Philippines for 10 years, one of the pioneers. Before I shifted to natural agriculture, and what I learned was a more spiritual type of farming and a more appreciation of the perfection of God and the gratitude for what is given to us. Through Shumei, I learned this beyond organic farming. Other than that, I was also the country director of Conservation International in the Philippines, which was tasked to conserve and preserve the biodiversity of the Philippines. And the project that we did was a joint project of protecting the biodiversity in the Philippines and helping the indigenous communities that live in those communities and to protect it. So my background of organic farming, natural agriculture, and conservation came together towards this project. So next slide, please. Oh, I think I'm doing it. So Philippine biodiversity, the Philippines is one of the 18 megadiversity countries. That includes the Amazon, Indonesia, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines is one of those. It has more than 52,177 described species, half of which are endemic, found nowhere else in the world. Endemic means that that's what it means, it's only found there. And we have many endemic species. This is the Sierra Madres. This is the last remaining rainforest in the Philippines. It's one of the richest in the world. And it contains what the Philippine eagle is our flagship species. The Philippine eagle is ostensibly the largest eagle in the world, next to I think the harpy eagle. But there are only 200 left existing in the Philippines now. And their habitat is very important to them. And as their habitat disappears, this eagle disappears as well. So the Sierra Mountains have the last remaining primary rainforest in the Philippines. It is the home of many critically endangered Philippine fauna. It is also home to different indigenous communities. This includes the Dumagats and the Aitas. And these are people who existed there from time immemorial. And they're the original descent, the original inhabitants of the Philippines who have lived in the rainforest in the Philippines for thousands of years. The Dumagats and the Remontado. The Remontados are the Dumagats who are mixed with the other Filipinos, and they're sort of the mix, and they live in the rainforest, and this is the project that we're doing to help them. They make their living off the rainforest. Just to give you a little background, when I was working with Conservation International, we were doing a protected area conservation, which means that you find an area that's rich in biodiversity and you protect it by stopping all activities in the area. Unfortunately, the activities included the activities of the indigenous peoples who made their livelihood from living there. So I was sort of contradicted because in preserving the rainforest, we were taking away the livelihood of these people here. So I had to find a way to preserve the rainforest at the same time, provide a sustainable livelihood to the Dumagats and the natives in the islands. So we embarked on this project to conserve biodiversity and provide livelihoods for the for the indigenous people. The indigenous people in the Philippines have been the most, as people have suffered here in the U.S., they're one of the most exploited and taken advantage of because of their land. And not only do they suffer from drought and floods from global climate change, they also suffer from people taking over their lands because they have some of the richest land in the Philippines. And this is one example, is they're building a dam now in the forest that I just showed you, that river. They're building a dam that will cover that rainforest and displace the indigenous people that live in that area. So we decided to take an approach to help the people in that area improve their livelihood and be able to fight back and preserve the forest. So we embarked on the project through Shumei, as well as our partner groups, Earth Day Foundation in the Philippines, who does Earth Day every year, and the Philippine government, because they're important to get them involved. And we were funded by the United Nations Development Program and the Global Environmental Facility, which provided funds for training and building of certain infrastructure, and we'll talk about that later. So it's both a biodiversity conservation and livelihood project for the indigenous peoples. And at this point, I'd like to introduce Dr. Beth Castro, my wife, who is one of the founding and practitioners of Philippine psychology at the University of the Philippines, where she teaches. Is one of the experts on indigenous psychology, as opposed to more Western psychology. This is indigenous psychology. And so I'd like to bring her up, Beth.
Good morning, everybody. I have a louder voice. Thank you very much, Eugene Sensei, and thank you very much to everyone who's here today. We're so happy to be here. It's wonderful to see old friends and colleagues. We've been in Shumei for a few years now, but you always feel so warm and so welcome and always fresh and new when we come here. So thank you for that. So my role is to do the more technical part this time and give you just a very brief idea of what we're doing in the Philippines. But I'd just like to start in a nutshell by quoting Eugene Sensei and Meishu-sama, saying, true happiness is found if we give and serve to others, and that's the way we give true happiness. And in a nutshell, I think this project is about that. It's about serving others, it's about helping people, and in that way also helping ourselves as a country, as a nation, and as a planet. In this particular project, which was funded by the United Nations Development Fund, I just like to show appreciation and gratitude to Tony, who actually was the one who wrote the project, single-handedly proposed it, nudged everybody to give data in order for us to get the grant. It was a good amount in Philippine standards, but not so much, of course, in other standards, but that's how we managed to do the project for a good 2 years. The approach and the objectives was really mainly to protect the rich biodiversity of the Sierra Madre mountain ranges by promoting the sustainable use of natural resources. We did this by improving the cultivation and processing of local agricultural products as an income-generating activity among the Dumagat population in the province of Tanay Rizal. Tanay Rizal is where the Shumei Natural Agriculture Farm is located at this time. And we did this actually in cooperation. I would like to underscore that because it's not very easy for Shumei and other non-government organizations, first of all, to get a UN grant. Second of all, to work with top government agencies like the Department of Natural Resources, the Department of Science and Technology, who gave us a lot of support in this project. So it was also a major event in that sense that we had partners in the government. So this is the Shumei Natural Culture Farm when we started initially planting roselle, and this is now. Now is planting time, and therefore you can see just very small, shoots coming out from the ground. We started planting starting in July because the rains did not come right away. So why do I mention this as the in the farm? Because the main product that we wanted to promote in our project was roselle. Roselle is Hibiscus subderifa. And by October and November this year, we are going to have something that looks like this. Roselle, full of roselle, about 3 hectares filled with roselle flowers in the farm. However, that is the flower. What is actually the product that we harvest is really the roselle calyx, because it's the calyx which is the base of the roselle, as you can see from here. This is what we harvest in hundreds of kilos come November. And we'll tell you more about the harvesting season as we move along. But let me run you quickly, because in the interest of time, I just have to read, because it's quite a long and big project, but it's very simple actually. We are planting roselle, a native crab species of the hibiscus family, and we can get so many products, a wide variety and a wide range of products such as tea, jam, or juice. Of course, the plant has also health benefits, rich in vitamin C, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, antivirus, etc., etc. We also did some kind of an assessment of the viability of other products intercropping with roselle. And of course, we tried peanuts in the beginning, but it did not work. So we went and looked at what was local and indigenous, and that was a learning process for us. And so we did the cacahuate. 3 species was selected instead because this was dominant in the area. And then, of course, we planted that, and now this too has many other uses, like soap and also for scabies and for other types of wounds. I'll go through this very quickly, and then you will see some pictures later. Of course, part of the project was also capability building. The idea really was not for the dumagats to just produce the calyx of the roselle, and then we buy it, and then we make everything. The idea was from beginning to end, from seedling, from planting, from producing, from harvesting, from processing, down the line up to the market. We wanted the dumagats to be part of it, so that they are not exploited by buyers who will buy the produce very cheap. So we had workshops on biodiversity conservation because, of course, we had to convince the dumagats to stop some of the very bad practices they were doing, like slash and burn, or cutting the trees to make into charcoal, because now they have an alternative livelihood that they can develop. We also had workshops on roselle cultivation and harvesting. By the way, roselle is actually growing very well in these areas, and we actually found them there, and that's why we were using local resources and local plants to produce. There were workshops very specifically in jam production and product processing, and this is where we were able to harness the resources of the government. The government would come and give us sort of teachers who would help us do jam production. They would give us teachers for packaging. They would give us teachers for marketing. And we would run these workshops in several days amongst the dumagats and among the local people. And finally, of course, the workshops on marketing and packaging, which actually we found was the weakest point in our area of work. But yeah, that's another long story, and we can learn from others. Of course, since we wanted to do the whole value chain, we wanted to have some processing facility. It was not enough to do something in our own kitchens, in our own backyards. We had to upgrade and upscale our work by constructing a processing center, thanks to Shumei, who provided a counterpart fund, actually, to set up the processing center. And UNDP provided all the machinery and the facilities. We now have a dehydrator, we now have a grinder, we now have all the necessary sort of equipment necessary for us to produce the jams in a standardized way. And we had to get approval from the BFAD. This is our food standard office, standardization office. And then, of course, which the heart of our program is really community service and community outreach activities. And we wanted to do this especially, mainly, of course, first is to introduce Shumei natural agriculture farming to a larger community, but also to introduce the possibilities of livelihood opportunities so that we can promote biodiversity conservation without harming the trees, without harming the forest, being in communion with nature. So our activities are really focused on the annual Roselle Festival. It's a celebration of life, it's a celebration of harvest, it's a celebration of culture in the various communities that we were in. A lot of our activities are anchored around sort of hiking in the Roselle plantation, buy and sell, pick and pay, and we also had some cultural performances and we had dances. And here are the children of the Dumagats doing some dance presentations. Also in this Roselle Festival, which is actually the highlight of our year-long efforts to plant Roselle and do all these marketing aspects, is we also every year receive interns from different countries. And one of them was international students from Holland who stayed with us for about 10 weeks and actually lived with the communities for a few days and then helped the communities in terms of the production and the marketing of the Roselle products. And this was a very, very good interaction with the Dumagat communities who for the first time had met people from Holland and from other parts of Europe. We also engaged local students. Our focus was really the young people because the Dumagat communities are really sort of an aging population and the young people do not want to follow that path. So we had to focus on young people and connect the Dumagat young people with the urban communities, with the urban people from Manila. So we also trained people from the universities, and these are our farm tour guides who are graduates of tourism classes at the University of Tanay in Rizal. Also, we did educational tours where we again engaged young people. Again, these are some foreign students, some from Japan. They brought there are some Japanese students who are in Manila studying English and Tagalog, and some of them brought their fellow students from the university to go to the farm as well. Of course, as always, we promote Jure. And of course, as always, we promote the Shumei philosophy and the Shumei way of life. We also promoted other Roselle and other farm products, and a lot of it is fruits, vegetables, and of course, the Roselle produce. Right now, we saw just here that one of our products, turmeric, is being sold here already. And lastly, we accumulated, now we have, this is relatively new, Eugene Sensei does not know this yet, but we now have an oyster, we have now a mushroom growing project as well, together with the other projects that we have. And finally, we also involve ourselves in encouraging other people to join our farmers market. We're part of a large community that is doing organic and natural agriculture in this area, which hardly had anything in the past. And now we are doing farmers market on a regular, I think once every month, every second Sunday of the month. And finally, in summary, overall, I would have to say that this project contributed in a large scale, in a macro scale, to poverty reduction, to food security, to sustainable livelihoods, and local community development by helping farmers to plan effectively and introduce new sources of income for the community. Finally, and I think this is our best effort, the communities are empowered and given the will and the desire to be able to with their new capacities and their new processing and marketing skills. Also, in this way, we would like to honor their indigenous knowledge and practices, which are very, very close to natural agriculture practices, and to cultivate a traditional plant and promote its multiple uses and its benefits. So overall, this has been the success story of our project. Thank you very much.